As I was going through the Ten Commandments, I realized that I needed to make an update. A great friend of mine informed me of the verses that were talking about the Ten Commandments. And it appears not only in Exodus, but also 2 verses in Deuteronomy. So where some may say that we should have 13 commandments, as some Roman Catholics propose, the 10 commandments are actually in Scripture. So here's those references in addition to the new updated video. So enjoy. Comfort had posted a video on the Ten Commandments and the distinction between the Roman Catholic Ten Commandments and the Protestant Ten Commandments. And what's interesting is I did a lot of research and I found this chart. And it was interesting to note that the Protestants and the Jewish were very similar, whereas the Catholics differed. And the reason that is because the Catholics start with number 2 as being named in vain. And the question has arisen about why the Catholics have the different Ten Commandments. Now, I just want to make one tiny distinction between the Jewish and the Protestants, since they have the most similarities. But what's interesting to note about the very first commandment is it says, "I am the Lord your God, which brought you out of the land of Egypt." And while that is the Jewish grouping, what is interesting to note is that it's not technically a commandment because it's just a statement. So technically the Protestant follows. Now how did these come about? Well, the Protestant came under the guy named Origen. Now he didn't have all his doctrines correct, but when you study it, the Protestant makes more sense, and I'll explain why later. The Roman Catholic was founded by Augustine, and that's why you have the different things to note. The last of the Ten Commandments, you'll notice that coveting and taking another man's wife, you shall not covet another man's wife, and you shall not covet, are 2 separate commandments. And the reason why that is, the only research I could find was because they did not want women to be treated as property. But unfortunately, the reason is that Jesus had said that I tell you, whoever looks after a woman to lust after her has already committed adultery within his heart. So lusting, unfortunately, automatically makes women property when they covet after them. So there's not a necessity to separate those 2. So another important thing to note is that these are not inspired, but where the Protestant makes the most sense. And the reason why it makes the most sense to me, not because I am necessarily from the Protestant.
The question arises, what makes the first 2 commandments distinction and why were they separated? Well, it's one thing to have God as the preeminence in our life, but it's one thing to give Him precedence. And that is that we can have Him first and foremost in our life, so we think, but then we have to, it's another thing to follow through with that and not make Him into a graven image. And so from that standpoint, the Protestants, it makes sense to group those into two commandments. some have argued that you should take all the thou shalls, and it would total 13 commandments. But they categorize in what the topic is referring to.
The reason why when you look at the chart as well, the reason why the Protestant follows is Jesus had also, where these groupings aren't inspired, Jesus did give us a clue, and it said that to love your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and strength. And the second one is like that, is love your neighbor as yourself. So they are broken into two categories. You see where the commandments are broken down into two. You also see where Jesus had said, you have heard it said, do not commit adultery, but I say unto you, whoever looks at a woman to lust after her has already committed adultery within her heart. So that follows the 10th commandment where it says, do not covet. So technically, the Protestant, where we can argue or maybe discuss what would be the best categorization, the Protestant closely follows that which is referred to in the Bible. So I hope this helps, and to help clarify the distinctions between how we got the 10 Commandments. If you like videos like these, check some videos out over there. Better yet, consider subscribing. You don't want to miss any of our important updates, so I would recommend clicking that notification bell so you don't miss us.